What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we will be breaking down 5 must-start running backs going into Week 3 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year round. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. But more importantly, please get in the comment section down below anything that you guys need: starts, sits, trades, roster reviews, injury updates, whatever it is pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season. Let me know down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. All right, first on the list, I'm going to talk about Travis Etienne. And listen, in these videos, we don't really talk about, Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey or guys who are really no-brainers. We're trying to think about, guys who might be maybe potentially moved on your bench or in the flex, or you're not so sure if they should be your RB2. But I just have to mention Travis Etienne going up against the Houston Texans. This team is getting absolutely decimated by the running back position on a week-to-week basis, just like they did last year. I mean, Zach Moss just had 20 fantasy points against them, for crying out loud, while Anthony Richardson, before he left the game, was running all over this unit. This unit is not good against the run, point blank, period. We want to start running backs against this Houston Texans defense. And yeah, looking at Travis Etienne's stat line last week, game script didn't really support him. Maybe you're not feeling super confident. 6.2 fantasy points in full PPR, 40 rushing yards off of 12 attempts, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 2 receiving yards. So, like I said, I mean, the Jaguars kind of playing from behind. That game was kind of a bummer overall. He's going to bounce back in Week 3. If you're in like a 10-team league and maybe you have other running backs who you're thinking of starting over Travis Etienne, don't do it. If you're in a 12-team or larger, you should be firing up Travis Etienne. No questions asked. He's an absolute smash play moving into Week 3. All right, next on the list, I'm going with ISIAH Pacheco. Hear me out. I think he's a really good RB2 this week. If you're in a position where you need to flex him, I think it's okay. Okay, just hear me out. ISIAH Pacheco hasn't been outstanding so far throughout the season. The Chiefs, of course, are going to throw the football first. They're going to utilize a lot of different players. It's an Andy Reid offense. We know what they are, right? Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. But listen, Pacheco, to me, has looked like the best running back, hands down, out of this unit. Easily, okay? 8 fantasy points in Week 2, 9.4 in Week 1. All he needs is that touchdown to kind of push him over the limit of being a good RB2 on a week-to-week basis, okay? 70 rushing yards on the ground last week, 12 rushing attempts, 5.8 yards per carry. Overall, Pacheco has looked solid. Like I said, he just needs to find the end zone. In Week 3, the Chicago Bears are visiting the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. This defense for the Bears might be the worst in the entire league, and they are awful against the running back position right now. We have to exploit this matchup, and this could be one of those games where the Chiefs get ahead and they choose to run the football more than throw the football throughout the game. So I do think Pacheco has a really solid chance to score a touchdown this week, get him over the hump, get you double-digit fantasy points. I think he's a really solid RB2 option if you're not so confident in what you have on your roster as we approach Week 3. All right, next on the list, I'm talking about DeAndre Swift, who I talked a lot about going into Week 1, which was an absolute bummer. And I still talked a lot about going into Week 2, Thursday night against the Vikings. Really encouraged you guys to have him in your starting lineup. And if you did, you were not disappointed. 27.1 PPR points, 28 rushing attempts, 175 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, 6.2 yards per catch, and he added 3 receptions off of 3 targets. Listen, Kenneth Gainwell could be back this week. That could affect DeAndre Swift's overall volume. It's a tougher matchup, to say the least, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But listen, even if DeAndre Swift does half of what he did last week against the Vikings, he's going to get you a very solid stat line. This should be a competitive matchup. This Tampa Bay unit looks pretty good. This Eagles unit still looks pretty good, coming off of what they did last year, going to the Super Bowl and everything. So I like Swift. I was a big fan of drafting Swift going into the season. I do think Kenneth Gainwell will be involved if he's healthy. and good to go. But I still think the volume for DeAndre Swift is going to be there. He's a change of pace guy. He has a big play capability. And I just think with that momentum that he gained against the Vikings in week 2, there's no way that the Eagles don't have him as part of the game plan. So I'm still a fan of Swift. If you need an upside play at the RB2 position, or if you're really struggling at the flex, like I said, if he just does half of what he did last week, you're going to be happy. I definitely think that is possible. I still think he can hit double-digit fantasy points as we move in to week 3. All right, next on the list, I'm going with RAHEEM MOSTERT, who I think some of you guys might be questioning, even based off of what he's done through the first 2 weeks of the season, because on paper, this Denver Broncos unit is pretty good against the run. They were really good in week 1. They weren't so good in week 2. Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders ran all over them. 18 rushing attempts, 87 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.8 yards per carry, and he added 2 receptions for 42 receiving yards at Denver, okay? So I don't have a lot of faith in this Denver's defense. I mean, they looked extremely poor, giving up a huge lead and losing that game ultimately in week 2. So this is a home game for Miami. This is their first home game of the year. So I like RAHEEM MOSTERT. I mean, we're not seeing Salvon Ahmed take away a ton of carries. He had 3 rushing attempts and 3 receptions. We're not seeing Devon A. Shane, who had 1 target, 1 rushing attempt, take away anything from RAHEEM MOSTERT. He ran all over the Patriots, who admittedly their defense doesn't look that great this year. But nonetheless, 121 rushing yards in week 2, 6.7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, added a reception, 25.7 fantasy points after having 13 fantasy points in week 1. Don't be scared of this matchup. I think that the Miami Dolphins come out firing in their first home game of the season, and I'm not so scared of the Denver Broncos defensive unit at the moment. RAHEEM MOSTERT, a very solid RB2 option moving into week 3. All right, last on the list, I'm going to go ahead and argue for Alexander Mattison as a strong start moving into week 3. Disappointing night at Philly, Thursday Night Football, a short week, had a fumble early in the game, didn't really recover from it. Listen, he was decent enough in week 1. I mean, if you look at the stat line, it wasn't great. Kind of, saved a stat line with a touchdown. But guys, this Chargers defense is almost non-existent. They're bad against the run. They're bad against the pass. This is going to be a good game script. This is going to be a high scoring affair. Both of these teams are 0-2. The Chargers need a victory. The Vikings need a victory. Both these defenses are bad. Both these teams can run the football effectively enough and can throw the football, no questions asked. I think Mattison can easily find the end zone in this game and put up a solid stat line. If you're weak at the running back position and you owe Mattison, you're looking at last week and you're saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Guys, he was playing the Philadelphia Eagles defense, one of the best defenses in the league, at least in the front 7. And week 1 against Tampa Bay is nothing to sneeze at either. This is the Chargers. They have not proven anything defensively throughout the season so far. RAHEEM MOSTERT, a solid performance in week 1 against this unit. And week 2, Derrick Henry, granted it's Derrick Henry, ran all over them and had 18.5 fantasy points. I just think don't lose faith quite yet. It was a tough matchup, a short week. A fumble early on can ruin your entire mindset. He should bounce back against the Chargers in week 3 in a high-scoring matchup against a really soft run defense. Mattison, a solid start moving into week 3. And that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content or find it helpful in any way, be sure to subscribe on the way out. This is all we do here all year round. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. Let me know in the comments section down below what you guys thought of today's list. Are any of these guys on your roster? Are you going to consider starting them over other players? And of course, any fantasy football questions that you guys have, anything that you guys need at all, start sits, waivers, trades, roster reviews, whatever it may be, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.